All right, we've got the top 5 matchup in the books, Georgia and Clemson. Georgia 10, Clemson 3, a lot to get to there. We could take this thing all the way back into our significant Thursday and Friday night results, as we've not gotten a chance to recap there. But for you, the wonderful viewers that are tuning in, youtube.com/cover3. Reminder, you can always watch our Monday afternoon shows, our Thursday lock shows, and our Saturday instant reaction shows. You can be tuning in to them at youtube.com/cover3. And if you are a subscriber to the Cover 3 page on YouTube, then guess what? Turn on those notifications. You get notified anytime we go live, so you don't even have to worry about it. So was it now 37-20? Did UCLA just score a touchdown?
Yeah. It's over, and you get the Rose Bowl, boys.
Okay, so let's save until the 6:31 left as I'm looking at my score tracker right now. I don't have any screens because I'm dedicating all my bandwidth to you and delivering that multi-platform excellence. So let's go ahead and start with Clemson and Georgia. It's fresh on my mind. I just did the write-up for CBSSports.com, and I think I want to tackle it first because I think we can get through it probably faster than some of these other results because it feels like we don't have a lot to peel apart. So I want to turn it over to you guys first. In this performance where we saw no offensive touchdowns, but man, such a strong level of play from Jordan Davis, from Devontae Wyatt. You got good outside linebacker play from Anderson and from Nolan Smith. Is this all about Georgia's defense for you? How much of this do you assign to Clemson's offense? And, how do you balance those two things as we look at both these teams moving forward?
I got to say, I liked that game better when it was called Penn State, Wisconsin this morning.
Ooh, do you think that's a theme through the day? Do you think that the defenses being ahead of the offenses is something that we might have seen in week one, maybe in a way we didn't see in week one in the pandemic season?
Possibly. I just think that there was two cases of two teams with better defensive lines than offensive lines, and you kind of got a messy game to take out of it. But that was really my biggest takeaway from Georgia Clemson tonight, was that neither offensive line. I thought Georgia's offensive line was better than Clemson's offensive line going in, but neither of them exactly covered themselves in glory tonight. And in their defense, like Clemson, that Georgia defensive line was just incredible tonight, that entire front seven. We talked about it this week leading up to it. It's why I took Georgia in the game. Still, I was shocked to see how dominant it was. And I feel like Clemson's defensive line, while not quite at the same level as Georgia's tonight, also played really well. I thought neither JT Daniels or DJ played great, but in their defense, they were under a lot of pressure over the entire night. I also felt like neither team's receivers did a whole lot to get open and give them kind of a release valve for them for most of the night too. So it was, Georgia's obviously going to be happy with the win, but it's not like a kind of win where if I'm a Georgia fan, I'm like, all right, we're ready to go compete with Alabama.
I think both these teams were really missing some important pieces tonight, and it showed, right? And where they were not missing pieces, for the most part, with the exception of Clemson with Tyler Davis, was along the defensive line. Both offensive lines kind of got whipped. I thought when Georgia lost Tate in that first series along the offensive line, that was a pretty big deal because, as you know, if you listen to the Junkyard Dogcast, they've been talking about how they're down offensive linemen. They got a bunch of injuries up front, and then to lose him was a big deal. Tom, I thought the other point you brought up was really good, though. Where is the Hunter Renfrow? Where is the the slot they had last year, right? Who came off the ACL and
Larry
really
Rogers,
good.
the guy.
Where's the threat over the middle of the field?
The guy who could get that first down on 3rd and 6 when you really need it.
And
all their receivers look the same.
Yeah, everyone's been trying to make it Braden Galloway. Everyone imagines that Braden Galloway is going to be this magic potion for this offense to be able to open it up. He missed all the time with the PED suspension, and you were just like, okay, well now he's back, and it's never clicked. You look at JC Chalk, you look at all those different tight ends. But we brought it up, man, might have been a month ago, but Jordan Leggett was a huge part of a Clemson offense back in the day. And whether it's a slot receiver or a tight end, you don't have a middle of the field presence right now. How much of that do you take into also the decisions that DJ Uyunglele is making right now? Do you give him good grades for this game, or are you putting a lot of this also on the the personnel and the makeup of the pass catchers.
Just because I've seen it in high school and because I've seen him do it last year, I do give him kind of a pass because I feel like he was just harassed all night. And when he had a little bit of time, he made a couple of pretty good throws, especially the one when they're going in the fourth quarter down the sideline. It was a nice ball he threw. I just think that like Georgia overwhelmed them physically right now. They do have some issues up front, and nobody's getting open for them. On a couple of those wide angle replays that ESPN showed, nobody was open. It wasn't like he was misidentifying guys who weren't open. Like they weren't there.
Yeah, I also think too, like they've got to figure out a way to get more of a run game going with him. Because I mean, especially if you don't have the receivers who are going to get the kind of separation that they clearly weren't. And I don't know, maybe whether you game planned for it or not tonight, maybe the way that Georgia defensive line was playing, it wouldn't have mattered anyway. I mean, he technically finished with 14 rushes for negative 22 yards, but he was sacked 7 times. And I think that's something that, but I just think that's something Clemson might want to consider going forward to kind of maybe take some pressure off of teams being able to just, blitz or do whatever they have to do to take advantage of that offensive line. And then the other side too, like going back to Georgia, like JT Daniels, 22 of 30 for 135 yards. Like, where was the vertical stuff that we were
hoping not there. No. Yeah, we had no explosive passes. We had no explosive plays in this game. I mean,
do you remember the questions that we had about these receivers on Georgia once Pickens went down and once the other guy went down? Like, guys, they got issues there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
maybe they'll get some dudes back. We'll see.
Do you think it matters? Because that's like that. When we were discussing the stakes episode, when we said, how much does this game mean? It does feel like I came out with more concern about both Georgia and Clemson.
Yeah.
And yet I spin it forward and I don't see either team losing another game, at least before the conference championship game.
I mean, if Georgia's offense is as impotent as it looked tonight, they could lose to Florida pretty easily. They could lose to Auburn. That was just, I mean, granted, they're not going to be facing many defensive lines like Clemson, but still, like it was just dink and dunk. They weren't taking any shots, and it was just too much like the Georgia team we saw last year, where it's like, sure, maybe their defense is so good that they're going to be able to just keep playing these low-scoring games, but the problem we've talked about for the last few years with this team is when they get up against a team that can score, they can't keep up. So it's like when it comes to Alabama, they can't keep up. Florida can score. Like the Gators looked, I didn't watch that entire game. They looked pretty crappy for most of the game before they finally turned it on against FAU and pulled away. But I still think that's a Florida offense that as the season gets going is going to be able to put points on the board. And my biggest concern after watching Georgia tonight is like, hell yeah, you're 1-0. That's great. But man, you scored 10 points and 7 of them came on defense.
Anything else? We've got a lot to get to. I want to hit Penn State, Wisconsin next. Anything else on Clemson, Georgia that lingers? How about this? All right, so let's say, does everyone here think that Clemson's going to win the rest of its regular season games?
Based on the way the ACC looked at its other games, yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yes.
What is the most likely loss?
NC State.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not writing off North Carolina after a tough road game to start the season against Virginia Tech. I'm not writing off Miami after getting blitzed by Alabama because that's just what Alabama does to everybody. But still, I'd go NC State maybe right now because NC State of all those teams, like they're the only one that really, well, not Clemson still, but of the other 3 challengers, NC State's the only one that I thought was like a physical football team that I saw this week that actually looked like it was ready to hit somebody. Like North Carolina felt soft to me at times at that Virginia Tech game. Miami, again, it was Alabama, so you can't put too much stock into it, but they looked soft to me for most of that game. And I just feel like NC State's the only team I feel like if Clemson were to punch it in the face, I feel like NC State's the only one that would punch back.
I mean, it's NC State. They look on time. They look on schedule. They are doing what you would hope to see out of an experienced team. And I say that on time, on schedule, because that game's on September 25th. I think the Clemson team that shows up in Charlotte again for the ACC championship will be a much better team when Will Shipley, when Kobe Pace, when this offensive line has had an entire season to be able to be a little bit more cohesive and try and gel. When all of the turnover, I mean, DJ is going to be a better quarterback in December than he is in this moment against this Georgia team. So even acknowledging the North Carolina and the Miami struggles and, looking at the Coastal, I still think that it's almost like if you're a Clemson fan and if you are coming out of this nervous, then I look at NC State and that trip to Carter Finley Stadium, I'm a little bit concerned, but I also know that if we can pass that test, then you've got all of October and then you've got all of November to be able to, get things back in line. I mean, I know that UConn on November 13th is going to give you sweats. I understand that the Huskies are going to have vengeance on their minds, after losing the Holy Cross. I ran the Chipolytics last Sunday, guys. I had Clemson as a 54-point favorite against UConn on a neutral field. And after UConn lost the Holy Cross, I haven't run the new numbers after today's results, but I wonder if we're going to get to Savannah State territory with the Huskies by the time that game comes in November.
I don't know. After what I saw today, I don't think I could trust Clemson as a 50-point favorite against anybody right now.